Where did the song Wings of the Wind come from?
Well, I was reading in Second Samuel, Mike, and it was David was speaking, and he had a vision of the Lord ascending, and he said, "And he rode upon a cherub and did fly, and he was seen upon the wings of the wind." And when I read that, I just was real inspired by it, and I imagine the Lord ascending down and having darkness under his feet, and it really inspired me that, as you become closer with the Lord, each step that you take with him, you start to realize that in your spirit you can visualize the kingdom of heaven. And when I pray now, I envision being right at the feet of the Lord as I'm praying. And so when I read Wings of the Wind in 2 Samuel, and I thought about the fact that I do fly myself in my spirit, because I sort of put myself at his feet. And so I think that's pretty much how Wings of the Wind came together.
What brought you to Maranatha Music?
Well, I was with a company called IAM Corporation, and they're a recording studio, and my producer, Skip Conti, is the president of the company, and I had been writing songs for his publishing firm, and actually as a staff writer. And after all the years I've been in rock and roll and playing in clubs and concerts and so on, and I met a friend from Maranatha Music, a man named Terry Shepard, and Terry asked me to consider taking my gospel songs that I had been writing and recording them. And so we prayed about it, and I went to my producer and asked him what he thought, and he was all for it. So I went in and started recording. I guess it was about 3 months after I started. The album was finished, and I'm real happy to be with those people at Maranatha. They really have a burden for souls. It's a non-profit organization, and they take the monies that they make from recordings and put it into music ministers to go out and proclaim the good news.
What secular song were you on that reached #1 or that was very popular?
I was in a group called the Blues Image, and in 1970 through 72 or 3, I believe it was, we had a song called Ride, Captain Ride, that was #1 in the nation for, I would imagine about 2 months or so, and it was in the top 10 for almost 6 months. And I got a chance to do a lot of touring and traveling throughout the country and doing major concerts with it and television shows. But I just had this emptiness, even though I had recognition and was doing everything I wanted to do, I still wasn't serving the Lord. I was serving the wrong master. And now I'm happy to say that I'm finally serving the King of Kings.
You wrote a song that sounds like you could be talking to Christians and to non-Christians. There's a place promised for them, paradise. Tell us about that one.
Well, basically, I was thinking about Calvary and how the Lord, when he hung on the cross for our sins and gave his life for us, that I was thinking about the thief who hung next to him, and how the thief was saying to the Lord, if you come into your kingdom, remember me, because he knew he was going to die and so on. And the Lord turned to him and said, "Today you shall be with me in paradise." And I really thought that would be a good idea for a song. It really touched me to think that here was a man who was a thief who said to the Lord, "Look, I know that I deserve to die because I'm a thief, and a robber, but, you don't deserve it," and so on. But even then, he believed the Lord was the Son of God. And I just really thought that paradise would be something that we could all focus on and have great hopes of being with the Lord in paradise.
One of my favorite songs on the album is Living Water. Is there a story behind that song?
Yeah, Mike. My grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher down in Evansville, Indiana, and he had a large congregation of about 3 or 4,000, I think. And um, although I never did meet my grandfather, he passed away before I was old enough to realize, about him. But my folks always told me about my grandfather preaching out on the front porch of his house, and how people would come from all over the counties to sit in his front yard and listen to him preach as he'd stand on the front porch of his house, and then how his church grew and so on. And he was a real warm man, from what I understand, and would start reading the scriptures and start crying because he really had this burden to let everybody know the love of the Lord. And so I thought about my grandfather and decided, hey, I should write something. So I did.
When you first began recording this album, did you have in mind the title of the album?
No, I didn't. I had recorded all the songs, and then I realized that there had been, I believe it was Barry McGuire had a song. I was going to call it The Witness, and then of course Barry McGuire came out with The Witness, and now this new play that he's doing, and so on. But I really think Standing in the Light depicts where I think I'm coming from at this point. For the longest time I was going to church, but I was not really following the Lord. I wasn't really walking with Him. I hadn't given my whole self to Him. So I was sort of hiding out in the background and didn't get into fellowship with people very much. And when I decided to give my life to Him, I just turned it all over to Him. And now I feel like I've come out of the shadows, so to speak, and now I'm standing right in His will,
Okay, where did the song The Witness come from?
Well, a good friend of mine and I had been together for, about a year and a half writing songs together. And I'd been witnessing to him about the Lord and sharing the Lord with him. And he wasn't against the Lord, but he just really wasn't for the Lord anyway. He sort of was humoring me, if you might say, And after about a year and a half, he decided to come to a Bible study, and he came with me, and my band was playing, and he came forward and accepted the Lord and changed his life. And so he came to me one day, and he had this song idea, The Witness, and he had written, I think, part of the chorus and a little bit of the first verse, and said, well, would you mind working with me on it? And I finished it with him. And after it was done, he said, I just want you to know this is my gift to you for sharing the Lord with me. And it was basically his idea, but I did help him finish the song up and so on. His name's Ernie Baker, and he's a real fine songwriter. And you're going to be hearing a lot more from him. And so I believe that through witnessing to him, it did change his life,
Would you say that contemporary Christian music today can reach the young person for Christ in a special way?
Absolutely. Mike, I've just came off a 20-city tour where I went throughout America with a good friend of mine, a fine speaker, Terry Shepard, and I would play and Terry would speak. And we're seeing revival happen through concertizing. The Gallup poll right now says that there are 60 million people in the United States who believe in the Lord but don't belong. In other words, they would come to a fellowship if they could find one that they think is in their style, and so on. But the established church, I believe, is sort of turned them off in a way, because they feel like they're outsiders, and they don't necessarily speak in their jargon. They say that out of the 60 million, there are 30 million of them between the ages of 15 and 35. And those people are the rock generation. They grew up on rock and roll, and, they've had a radio stuck to their ear for, 15, 20, 30 years. And they're really tuned in to what music is saying and doing. And we believe God is using contemporary Christian music to draw these people in so that they can relate to the gospel through their own jargon, and somebody can speak to them on their own level. And we're seeing thousands of people won to Christ every day by attending these concerts. And I believe they're of the Lord, and I think that you have to just look at who's getting the glory in these songs. You know, so I know some people have said that, you know, rock and roll music is of the devil, and I believe that that the devil definitely has his hand in rock and roll music. But if you listen to the lyrics to the Christian contemporary rock and roll music, you realize that God is getting the glory. And I've always used that as a rule of thumb, that whoever gets the glory is normally what you should look for, you know.
And he wrote a song called Redeemer. Tell me about that.
Well, I had just come home from a men's retreat, and I was really feeling close to the Lord, and I had returned back after a weekend to my house, and the phone was ringing, and people were coming and going, and I have a busy home, and, you know, I just sort of felt like, gee, I just love to just have that peace with the Lord all the time, and I thought, boy, I'd sure love to just be with the Lord, you know, and I was thinking of my life and how long it's been, all the years that I've spent, and I said, Lord, I just wish you'd just come now. I'd like to just go right now from this retreat right on up with you. And it seemed like it was taking so long for the Lord to return. And I had talked to some other people, and they all felt the same way. You know, gee, it is seeming like it's taking a long time to get where we're going and to get home to be with Him. And so that's where Redeemer came from.
Who are the members of the Denny Correll Band?
Well, right now, Jay Truax from the Love Song, and also plays with Chuck Girard quite a bit, has been playing bass for me. An old friend, we go back about 15 years, and John Mailer has been playing drums also from Love Song, and he's been with Richie Furay, and you know, he's a real fine drummer. Tony Dean has been playing guitar with me. Tony is from an old group that I was in called Manna, and then has gone on to be with Dave Mason and has played with the Pointer Sisters a lot. And now he's playing for the Lord almost all the time, and he's getting real blessed.
Who is the Correll Corral?
Oh, you read that on Eric's album. Oh, he was just sort of kidding. My brother Tim and myself did the background vocals on Eric and Michelle's new album, and Eric, being the card that he is, said that he's going to put that on the album.
That's great. Tell us about the song Glory Road.
Well, I wrote the song, it's been 5 years ago. And it was just an idea I thought of when I realized that we're all going to be traveling up the same road together. And, you know, the message in it, I think, is basically make yourself ready. Let's all be ready when the trumpet sounds, man. And we're definitely going to go, you know.
Back in the days of Noah, he warned people that the Lord was coming and that they should get right. And you have a song on the album called Noah. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Noah is an exciting tune, at least in my own mind, because the story of Noah, of course, has been told so many times. And I was reading this report on what the archaeological studies have found about Noah and finding parts of the ark and so on. And I think the movie was out about the time I wrote it. And I just thought somebody should really put it into a contemporary vein, you know, and explain how everybody laughed at him too, you know, and to encourage others when they're sharing the Lord not to be discouraged when they put you down or you know, sort of turn their backs from you and call you a fanatic or whatever, because they did it to Noah, and look what happened to them.
So these songs were written during a period of years while you were still, like, with the world, singing with the worldly bands, right?
That's right. I was told by my producer to write songs regardless of what type of song it was. He could use it. And I didn't even realize that it was the Spirit in me, the Holy Spirit, drawing these songs out of me, until I turned around one day and realized I had a whole library full of gospel songs. And of course, I'd been a Christian, but I'd been what you'd call a nominal Christian. I hadn't really given my whole life to Him. And about 2 years ago, when I went on this retreat, I gave my life to Christ fully and rededicated my direction and my talents and everything to Him. And then it was just the Spirit going before me, getting the songs ready, because the Lord knew I was going to eventually make that decision.
The signs of the times say that the Lord is coming back. You've got a song entitled He's Coming Again. Tell us about it.
Well, I originally wrote the song for Daryl Mansfield. Daryl and I are close friends, and I'd been writing songs, and Daryl had been going through my library and finding tunes that he liked, and he'd been real busy on the road and didn't have a chance to write, and so I believe I know I have 4 songs on his new album, Higher Power, and I had written He's Coming Again for Daryl because he needed something in that feel. And I believe that the song, of course, is true. You know, He is coming again. But Daryl didn't have room for it. After he recorded his album, he didn't have room. And I believe it was just a divine purpose that, you know, I was able to record it on my album because I love the song.
Tell us about the song Lead Me Home.
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory, you know. Just sort of, I've been kicking around so long, and I just would like to be led home, you know. Not that I'm discouraged with life. I'm thankful to have my life and my family and everything. I love what I do, and I'll be happy to sing in the church or sing in concerts until the Lord comes. But when He does come, I want Him to lead me home.
And the final song I'd like to talk about is a song with a simple title, Faith.
Well, faith came from an old idea I had that when the news is starting to look so bad and you know, I was just thinking about some of the stories throughout the Bible. The whole Bible is based around faith. If you really can see that I think God is saying to everyone, by your faith, you can walk with Him. And the stories throughout the Bible, Battle of Jericho and David and the giant, and just all the stories are about people that had faith and how their faith changed the direction of the times. And I believe that's what's happening today is that through our faith we can change the course of history.